Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 74th episode of our first run through the House of Light DLC for Book of Hours. First run on YouTube, at least, playing the full DLC. So, we had a pretty eventful Numa, at least in terms of all of the things we got done. I know at the end of it, it was just sort of watching that all play out. But the one challenge I now have is that because everything sort of turned out the way that we wanted, I'm left with a few more options than I sort of was expecting. So one really quick thing I wanted, well, maybe not really quick, but one thing I do want to try and get through right now is just to take a look and see if I have any skills that are not part of my, they're not part of my tree or my collection yet. So just like the Fire Circle Tantra gave us solutions and separations, I just want to see if there's some options here for other opportunities. So I had I was under the misapprehension that the Queens of the Rivers was one that we could read because of the Nyctodromi or Birdsong. I believe in the case of Path and Pilgrim, we actually, I thought I made a note. Yeah, I was going to put that into Birdsong. So it's not immediately clear to me that I want to put any more points into that. 108. So this one's a little harder for me to think effectively about, because ultimately I have one of two paths that I can do with this skill. One would be to say, okay, now is the time to bring Coil and Chasm up a point, which, you know, fair. It is the one that I haven't yet put into the list of things that I might level up further. However, it's also true that I could potentially use that Grail and that Scale to go even higher on certain things. We don't need to worry so much about the Great Signs and Great Scars. That is roughly where I need it. But if I want to try and push other things higher, so for instance, Stone Stories is potentially something that I could use. Also is effective against infestations, although I don't think I don't think it's the specific ones that I need to worry about. So under Scale, if I wanted to get even further in terms of the different books that I can read, there's an argument for putting that into Stone Stories. Grail is a little bit harder to argue for simply because my highest candidate that's not Great Signs and Great Scars is Desires and Dissolutions. So that's simply not going to get, like, I need a level 9 Grail to effectively outdo Great Signs and Great Scars. I shouldn't be leveling something up to get access to Grail texts. But the difficulty for Desires and Dissolutions is that it's actually not that helpful either, because I have Edict's Marshal already at level 4. And the fact of the matter is if I'm going to level anything up, it's going to be Edict's Marshal to get that, you know, to make it easier to get a Wormwood Dream. So it's kind of hard for me to point at Pentiments and Precursors. That may in fact be an argument to read 108 and then just put the point into Coil and Chasm. So, okay, so Sacra Solis and Sacra Lamea. We have at level 2. Now this does help with curses, so I may want to do an audit of the different things. Yeah, so I think I had originally said that maybe I'm going to put Sacra Lamea up, and then I think something caused me to hold back. I think that's actually true for a number of these here. And then the Annals of St. Brendan's is a little bit of an interesting one for the simple reason that Inks of Containment does help me against theoplasmic contamination, although I think I have the actinic theoplasma, which is a little more difficult for me to work with. All right, so let's take a look at the Fusine options. So that's Weaving and Not Working, Resurgences and Emergences, which I believe is committed, so similar argument there if I wanted some Grail and Moth stuff to level up. And then Deaths and Their Evasions. Fairly high level book, but of course it's a knock one, so I have a fighting chance of being able to read it. It does give me Edict's Liminal, so I can see myself using a higher level Edict's Liminal, but I'm not so convinced that that's like the real the real forward momentum that I need. Udrakashas. So amusingly enough, Stone Stories would be the one that I would use to read that. So, I mean, maybe that's an argument for the pentiments and precursors. I don't know. And then the Tripled Heart gives me Tridesma Hyra, which I believe I do already have. If not, that would actually be a really... Yeah, it's right here. Okay. So I think probably where this is likely heading is I'm going to start making some decisions in terms of skills based on the curses that I have. So two worms, one heart gives me stitching and binding, which I believe... Oh, that's interesting. If I don't have stitching and binding, I should be prioritizing 2 wombs, 1 heart. If I recall correctly, stitching and binding has a sky aspect. Okay. So 2 wombs, 1 heart is going on the list. Now I may need to think about how I'm going to get the heart that I need to be able to read it, but that gives me 1 to work on. Novel method for invocation and contrition. I'm not so sure that the 14 rows is achievable right now. I think these are the VAC texts. So Matter and Deeds of Serpents, Edicts, Liminal, again, within shooting distance because of Great Signs and Great Scars, but maybe not the one that I need to think about. Now, Road to Janus is an interesting one because we do not yet have... Oh, no, sorry, we do have Doranwall, never mind. But I was also just saying, like, level 18 is quite difficult. Normally we need a Newman text for that. Messenger awaiting your destination, sort of similar story with Doranwall. Origins of Hours, so, I mean, that's essentially the same argument as the lesser Sacralamea stuff, so we'll hold back on that for now. Do I have Sickle and Eclipse? I can never remember. Yes, I do. Okay. Although that does offer something against corruption, so 1 for me to think about. I'm near certain we have Anbury and Lapidary. We do. Drums and Dances. If I had 12 heart to play around with, I can see myself doing that, but okay. And then we've kind of done this to death. Actually, Socardia's Delights is a little funny just because I now have a Grail and Knock to play around with. Yeah, all right. Musgrave Sketches, we should have... what is it? Sights and Sensations. Again, I do apologize for the amount of time that this is taking, but... Okay. Now the Ascendant. So we have Hyksos. We have Edicts Martial, which gets me up to 5. 6 with the Arab. If we have a Hailstorm, I can see this helping. But I definitely feel like we should be putting some effort into reading the Ascendant. Solutions and Separations we have. Ronoscopy we should have. 7 shards. Now, if I recall correctly, I believe I was going to put Disciplines of the Hammer in something like Nyctodromy, so that should really be around level 4 or 6, although the challenge is that I don't have the edge to read this sort of stuff yet. Rhyme and Remembrance. Do I have that? Yes, I do. Unhatched Hymns. So maybe Once Upon a Time that would have been a useful one, but we're where we want to be with... Yeah, these are the one... We're really starting to get into territory where it's just a little too difficult to read. Okay. This at least gives me something to start with. So I think probably we need to wait for the weather. Although there's really no argument for me not... like, I really probably should be reading 108 at this point. If nothing else, I just put it into Coil and Chasm. So we'll do that one just to get it off our plate. I can use the Whist here. So I can master this mystery, enough scale to match mystery scale. I think we'll also throw our effort behind the inks. And with that in mind, I should probably also be putting a little something into preparing the dishes. I haven't really thought at all about the invitations and such, so let's take a moment to think about that. So it's usually Strathcoyne, Wakefield, Schaller, Daymare. So we had, sorry, actually we had Strathcoyne, Wakefield, Schaller, Daymare, and then it's either Moore, Corso, or Denzel. So there's an interaction between Zachary and Corso, there's an interaction between Strathcoyne and Daymare, and there's an interaction between Coquille and Daymare. I didn't even think about inviting Coquille. I think I'm going to invite Corso this time, though. So I should write the guest list down just to... Okay, so... got B for Fraser already. We don't know what I'm going to do for Wakefield yet. Schaller. Game chips for Daymare. And Corso. Okay. So pickled mushrooms count as a first course, so maybe we do that for... Pickled mushrooms will give me a first course for Schaller. I can't remember if I've done the mushroom meringue or not. But that would actually be a good one for Wakefield. Okay, so we've got, or we will, maybe I should start the potatoes. Identify as potatoes. These are potatoes. Spectacular. Okay, so we'll be making the game chips. So I need a pudding, which either has winter or grail. That's not exactly hard to get, but... So for winter stuff, yeah, a lot of meringues. Stargazy pie is an option. So is, actually, roast potatoes are also an option. And then under the grail stuff... quite a few options. I mean, the orange jumble is the easiest one by far to make. I think I'm actually... I hate that I make this so often, but I think I am going to do the orange jumble for Corso. It just happens to be I've got a bunch of sugar here and almonds, so it's really just asking to be made at this point. And if I'm completely, like, to be fair, this gives me a ton of options. So if it's just a question of what I give Zachary, as far as winter is concerned, I can do, again, if I want meringues, but I could also just do a boiled egg. Roast potatoes will do the trick. Pale marrow. So I think what I might actually do is I think I'll take some rounds and see if I can get the... I'll actually see if I can get a pale marrow. Afterwards, I don't remember what work I performed, except in sense and sensations, leaf mold, a rhythmic musical clicking like melodious castanets, soft blue flame like antique gaslight, and cold. I remember that where we went, it was cold. So if you don't recall what that was, that's the work that I did in Numa. And look at the distance we've traveled as far as Spintry are concerned. We're doing quite well. Okay. Another question I should ask myself is whether or not I want to bring Denzel in. Because we don't really have a whole lot... we don't have a whole lot that we need to worry about with our memories. We're preparing things for the salon. Maybe what I'll do here is I'll take the Tryst, the Health, the Fet... So these get set aside for the work I'm doing. Yeah, here's what I'll do. Fixing and mending. There's not much work on offer in Brandcrude, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. I am going to bring in Denzel. Denzel rarely works for free, but he won't take payment for helping a friend. And this is largely just me potentially taking advantage of an opportunity. I don't 100% know what I'm doing with this yet, but if Denzel winds up giving me a memory that I find helpful, I'll pounce on it. So again, these potatoes are for the game chips, and then what we're doing with the marrows are we're trying to get something that Wakefield will like. This is a marrow. Promising. Denzel the blacksmith will lend me his strength for the day. Speak to Denzel, he might even reply. Alright, this is a marrow. Promising. Let's move the rose hips. Guess I don't really have any place for the mackerel. This one's a little harder for me to say if I should keep going with the marrows and such. Let's see what the weather brings. Or maybe we won't get any weather. I really should just make the meringue. He does a lot with silence, this man. So let me just take a minute here and think about Denzel. So again, our options for opening areas is the Room of Rusts, which is 11 Forge. We have... and then we have the Broken Bridge. So if I were to talk to Denzel with the metal, so we get 6 basically automatically, right? So Denzel, the metal, and the Foresight. And in fact, that goes up to 7 if we give him the tool. And at that point, he can either use a metal, or I just need to give him some food or drink. Yeah, you know what? At this point, I'm going to level him up. I don't know if I'm going to go all the way with this yet, but I think the time that it takes me And the fact that that preserves the option is kind of enough. Disinfectory. Alright, there's the Catwink, dark and pungent. I'll probably use him to... I'll probably use him to open up another room, but... A dish with forge, grail, heart, and lantern. Okay, let's make the game chips. So there's the dripping. Make game chips. Dish with edge, forge, heart, and knock. I feel like the mackerel gives forge. Let me just, I'm going to consult my spreadsheet here for a second. It does, but it doesn't give the amount that I thought it did. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. It is winter, and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. So my outside option for all of this would be, we should still have some Veiled Goddess Lapsing Sutra. Oh yeah, no, actually this is much easier than than I'm making it out to be. So let's just get the basics down here. Inspiration and determination. So we will definitely get Denzel to open up the broken bridge. Poured out. The Veiled Goddess Lapsang Suchong, named for an enigmatic minor deity whose charge is the healing of burns. But not the dropping of tea, apparently. So yeah, we should be on track to having all the invitations ready to go. I can only make one more dish today, which is a little bit of a shame, but I think we should be, overall we should be good. Alright, let's give him the square, the Mason's Pride. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistants something to help, increasing their abilities. We will help Isan Fekri, by the way. I'm not deliberately ignoring him. He also knows Deep Mandaic, so that's going to be someone I prioritize for a return trip. 108. Ava de Wolf discourses on the fifth history, and particularly on those who are said to have passed over from it, the Great Hooded Princes, the Knocklong, who ascended under the Mother of Ants, but now, so Ava claims, honor the Horned Axe. The Great Hooded Princes call their library the Tomb of Lies, and this has given rise to a foolish tradition that the princes are habitual liars. Of course, in fact, truth flourishes when lies are slain. On the other hand, the princes do not say knowledge is power, but rather power is knowledge. Ava has, to her regret, never visited the library. She notes that it is said to be west of the Lion and north of Victory, and suggests that, although the princes are generally associated with India, their library might be further east. So that's a confounding peril for us, and pentiments and precursors. We are going to need to get a memory for leveling up Coil and Chasm. But I can work with that. So I've not quite decided yet if I want to use this fet at the moor or not. There may be another use that I have. Alright, so there's the game chips. And yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of comes down to how likely do I think I am to get a pale marrow out of the current draws. Let's draw one more. So obviously these marrows can be used to, or actually, I don't even need to. I can do it with potatoes. So with that in mind, I'm going to want to cook those. So these are potatoes. Spectacular. And I'll probably have to use one of the health to generate a memory for leveling up Coil and Chasm. Roast potatoes. Alright, so we will give Denzel something to drink. I can offer my assistant something to drink. So that'll get him ready for the, that'll get him ready to open the room. I would sort of still like to harvest some memories from him, though. So I also need to think about what I'm serving the guests. So this will be for Corso. I have no luck with placement. I'll see what I have more of in the cellar. That's not going to let me put this anywhere, is it? Once more with feeling. All right. So in the cellar, it's about even between Jannings and Domaine Reveline. I'm just trying to think of whatever scaly drinks I can give Strathcoin. But sure, we'll serve the Domaine Reveline and then we'll put a fresh bottle up here. Down to the Grussians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. So here we're just talking with Mr. Kill so that we can get a scale or a nectar for our level up. Again, we can use the health if I have to, but I'd like to use that to get Blue Crown if I can. Okay. So, my guests will be able, two of them will be happy with Islewater. That's Schaller and Wakefield. Actually, before I do that, we can just serve the tea for Daymare. Okay, if I can, I'd like to get another invitation written before too long. This would be so that I can bring Isan Fekri back. But obviously my priorities are a little different right now. So let's get those essentially right now we're going to wait for the conversations with Denzel, but we can at least get the invitations out now. So Strathcoin uses scale. I know we're at the end of we're at the end of the time, so okay. Should be able to get, well, yeah, I guess the question is, what do I want to do with that shap that I get back? I may use it to, it might be wiser to use it to generate a memory rather than make some money. Okay, so we had Fraser. Wakefield is next. Schaller will need heart. Roast potatoes. Another example of how how this game had an effect on me. This is such a silly little anecdote, but I tried, there's a burger place that I used to go to a little more often than I do now. Actually, it's been probably a year or two since I've stopped by. It's not a bad place. It's just like, you know, the costs go up, and it's a burger. It's hard to be upset with a burger, but it's not like you're saying sort of it's the best thing that you've ever had. But I noticed that they were doing, I think they called them like fancy chips or fancy fries. It's fries, but they put Parmesan cheese and rosemary. And as soon as I saw the rosemary, I immediately thought of this line: you really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately the kitchen garden at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. And it's like $3 more, but I totally got the fancy ones because of this game. So, there are definitely some exalted things this is great. This is exactly what I wanted from Denzel. There's some exalted things in this game, so like the fact that the inclusion of music in the setting and the importance that it has, I really did motivate me to dedicate my energies towards studying music again. But sometimes you just get the fancy fries because of the rosemary line. Okay, so let me just double check. So in this case here, I should be able to level up Coil and Chasm as expected because of the hindsight. So there's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. So Denzel has his level 9, which means we should be able to talk to Isan Fekri for the Affair of the God in the Wood. The Affair of the God in the Wood. The Lytirian, a faddish health camp in the Black Forest, has attracted attention after many of its clients seem to have developed sudden, sometimes upsetting artistic abilities. Visitors with an interest in heart or nectar mysteries will want to talk about this. Okay. Mr. Isan Fekri. Formerly, Isan was a healer. He was not human. He was Secretary Salvant of Hush House, but not all at the same time. Fussy, kind, famously foul to look upon. It's good to be back. Thank you for seeing me. This curious matter in the Black Forest. I hope I can find something in the collection here to understand it better. Try a book with as much mystery heart as their heart interest. So that should be pretty easy to... I'm more interested in the therapeutic angle than the artistic one, although there is something here that, shall we say, tugs at the coattail of my thoughts. The text is useful, thank you, but now that I'm back at Brandkrug, I've realized the oddest thing. The work that's coming out of this place, it's very like the work that Thyrza Blake used to do. I'm sure you know that she was librarian here before you. Perhaps a coincidence, perhaps not. Now, we do have, I believe we should have a couple of Fekri books. He may have already talked to us about it, but there's like Fekri's Herbery, which you can definitely talk to the various characters about. Oh, maybe I didn't. Okay. But yeah, you can usually get an extra lesson or something from those, so I do want to follow up on that when I can. And because we're able to satisfy Eason's interests, we will now take care of the broken bridge and call it for the week. Broken bridge. The jail bridge still stands, but charred and twisted. It groans dangerously in the wind. A fire then, but what fire does this? It's as if someone has trailed a match flame along a bridge of wax. On the far side, the gate stands wide. When the bridge is repaired, I can enter the jail. So I really like the way they did the... I'll finish on this for today. I really like the way that they did the description of this, because obviously it's a plotting pace for this playthrough, which for me, it works for me because I just think there's so much interesting stuff in this game that you don't necessarily have to rush it. But one of the things that I recognize from the beta was that you have the opening text for the game, like when you're buying it on the screen, on like Steam or whatever. There's this idea of the house being abandoned by a fire after a fire, and then you have sort of the introductory material, right? You wash up on St. Brendan's, you're here to take care of the library, etc. Mention of fire in there as well. But one of the things that I noticed that they added after some time in the beta was a few reminders. Hey, this library seems to be in pretty good shape for a place that was abandoned after a fire. You get down into I think it was the kitchen here, where it's like, okay, there's some signs of a fire, but this couldn't be the one that they were talking about. And now that we're deeper into the house, it's not just that we have the fire, but it's like, okay, yeah, there's a fire, but this is unlike anything I've ever seen before. And so there's the payoff to the mystery, but there's even more, right? You're now quite curious. And of course, at both extreme ends of the prison, there's definitely some nice resolutions to that, let's say. Actually, sorry, there's one other thing that I'll do. So, I don't know, there's lots of little touches. The game on its own, just, right, as nice writing, even if you don't put all the pieces together, even if you just like it as nice descriptions of things, the game works completely on that level. But one of the things that I really enjoy with sort of repeated playthroughs of certain games is that it does let me appreciate just some of the different ways that the game works on you. It's a little bit like, watching a movie, particularly a favorite one, but essentially any movie that you're maybe a bit more familiar with, you get to appreciate some of the craft behind it. And that in some ways it can be a little bit of a shame because, sometimes it's just nice to lose yourself in it, but I've always tended to find that, at least for me, some of the satisfaction can be picking it apart and just sort of seeing how it all works. So, for what it's worth, it's something I get out of it. But anyways, you've all been very patient with this overly long sign-off. I will just mention, I believe I may have to go away for a little while. I don't think this should get in the way of recording, but it is kind of last minute. So if there is an interruption, I'll try as much as I can to sort of announce when I think there's going to be interruptions. But it is possible that I may have to miss a couple of episodes just because I'm not going to be able to get some recording done. But my hope is that I will see you all on Monday. I hope you all have a very nice weekend, and we will be back to see the opening phases of Brand Krug Jail. Until then, take care.